Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Roseville, a pretty good long way from the nearest navigable waterway. But Marvin Hawk, retired farmer, businessman, and realtor, as you'll see, loves to surround himself with these watercrafts. Marvin Hawk, I can still smell the paint. I guess it's paint or varnish or something.
Varnish.
Is it varnish?
It's varnish, yeah.
It smells nice and clean. You got the dozen boats in this shed.
Yes.
Actually, a little background on you. You used to be in the farm supply business, and this was one of your warehouses, I guess, or a supply shed of some kind.
Yes.
And then when you sold that business or got out of business, I'm also a boat collector, so I'm going to fill that thing full of boats. And you've done it a few times, haven't you?
Yeah.
You filled it and then emptied it and filled it again.
Can't have an empty building.
And you got to have a bunch of boats.
Yeah.
And you got to have a bunch of boats from the 1950s, right?
That's my era.
That's your era.
Yeah.
This is really a sweet one. Now, you finished with this one, right?
Yes.
So it's time to sell it, isn't it? You can't actually get in the boat and take a ride.
No.
You got to collect it, fix it up, and then sell it.
Sell it.
Yeah. No, what are we looking at here? This is really sweet.
This is a Pinon, 1957 Pinon, and this is a molded hull, they call, and very popular boat in its day. When I bought it, this is pretty much all complete. I didn't have to do much woodworking on this one. And if you will notice, this back seat here is actually pine, where all of the other materials are mahogany, which most of the boats in that era use mahogany wood.
I wonder if somebody replaced this before you got it.
I think they did,
With pine, yeah.
and then they tried to stain it to be as close to the mahogany.
But it's
colors.
mahogany, huh?
Yeah.
And what about now I'm not a boat guy, so in the hull it looks like lattice work or what are those called? Those ribs? Are they ribs?
The ribs,
Okay.
and that was to add strength to the molded hull so it wouldn't give, contract. Then they added extra ribs in between the main ones just to have an area to walk on the floor for wear.
Yeah. Okay. This would have been on any lake or river, anywhere in the U.S. It was a pleasure boat, I guess. Just something to go out and hang out with. Would you ski behind a boat like this?
Yes. In fact, when Diane and I were first married, we had a boat with just a 25-horse motor on it, and we skied behind.
Of course, you were a lot lighter then, right?
A little lighter and more agile.
But you have never had this one out.
No.
You have any intention of taking it out?
No, I really
you don't think you will?
No. They were a very popular boat in the 50s.
Oh, it's really pretty. I mean, it's got a beautiful design, doesn't it?
And the company originated in Wisconsin, but a lot of boat companies came out of Wisconsin and Minnesota.
You've got 3 or 4 of these boats that are finished, and you've got them where you completed to the stage that you want them to be in. We're going to visit those boats first, okay? This one I noticed as soon as we entered the garage here. I noticed this boat. It's beautiful. I mean, the wood is beautiful.
Yeah, I feel it's very, very unusual. The name is Morphew, built in Texas. I've been on the internet and I just cannot find out much information on the company.
Morphew. So that means there probably didn't make many of them, because the more boats are made, the more information circulating out there. Isn't that right?
And from what I've gathered, the man that owned this company was more in racing, and apparently this pleasure boats were just a sideline for him, but he built racing boats.
Come back here with me so we can get a look from this direction. Again, you don't have a motor on this one, but it would have had an outboard,
It would have had an outboard.
Okay, and it would have been powerful, because he was building racing boats, huh?
They were so lightweight, and then the hull structure on this was pretty flat. Maybe wouldn't have rode as good as other boats would, but the speed potential was there.
What condition was this in when you got it? Did you have a lot of work to do on it?
The main work I had to do was rebuilding these areas in here. Not being, I think, a professional boat builder, this owner, moisture would have a tendency to get in around here and deteriorate. But other than that,
So this was rotting out on the sides and the back here?
on each side of it, and I filled it with epoxy. I used sawdust to try to blend the epoxy into a close tone. But, it was mainly revarnishing it and sanding the seats down.
I noticed you have a lot of trailers too. Almost every boat is on a trailer. Or there's one on blocks, but everything else is on a trailer. Do the trailers come with the boats when you buy them? No,
Not
you got to
always,
buy a trailer.
Not always. I've got 3 other trailers sitting out here in the lot now.
So you have plenty of trailers to last you for
Yeah.
a while, huh?
We have a tendency to put a boat in some of the parades or something, so I need a trailer.
Let's go to this one over here. This is a sweet little boat too. What do we know about this boat? Yellow jacket.
Yellow jacket. I refurbished this one 2 or 3 years ago. Here again, it was the outer hull probably was in worse shape than
Can
any
you show
of
us
them.
over here? Show us over here what you mean.
There was a tendency on these edges to be deteriorated and chipped out real bad. And along the top, I wanted to just go with natural wood color, and I had so many repairs on the hull that I went with a darker stain on it. But it was pretty rough. The wooden trim was original, but some of that was in terrible shape.
And you had to replace that too.
I had to replace that. These arms under the seats were all rotted and terrible, so I cut out new oak pieces for
Well, they look terrific.
for
I mean,
that.
and they look original. Of course, we stained it all to the same color, so they do. Now these are just. Oh no, these give. Look at this.
That was a big sales pitch of Yellow Jacket in the 50s, was this ride in this boat, because the seats would give.
Springs. They're on springs, like little shock absorbers, huh? So
It
you
would
hit
be
rough water,
more
you're
comfortable.
sort of floating on top of it, huh? That's neat. And it's got drink holders,
Yeah, yeah.
drink holders front and back. And
got a compass in case we want to know where we're at.
yeah, and you sure could get lost in some bodies of water anyway. And what about, did this come with it, this old motor?
No, I just added that for looks. Some of the trim I have replaced. I have a wall full of extra lights and trim to put on boats.
We'll take a look at that too, if you don't mind, because it's like you have your own spare parts here, right?
Yeah.
You never have to send out for anything. You find something that'll work.
The chrome pieces, some were better qualities apparently than others, and then some will start pitting underneath the chrome and get pretty ugly looking.
Yeah. Okay. One more before we take a different tack here. You don't see many airboats in central Illinois. It's not really the topography for airboats, but you got one.
I've got one.
What in the world? Why in the world do you have one?
We bought this from an estate sale at Roseville, Illinois, and he apparently went to the Illinois River quite a bit. And after World War II, he bought a surplus target or drone airplane engine and made his airboat, and he had the boat hand built and the trailer hand built. It's kind of
Oh, be darned.
the lever assembly on the trailer, it looks like it come off of a piece of farm equipment or something up there.
yeah.
So it was all his idea. But I was not aware that they even had target airplanes in World War II.
Yeah, but that's an airplane engine.
It's an airplane engine.
And you have some difficulties with it. Apparently, if it's on an airplane, it works fine, but it doesn't on a boat, right?
we laughed about it, that being a target plane, I guess all it needed to run was once.
There you go. Shoot it
But
down.
anyway,
Start again.
we had some mechanics work on it, and it's got a dual timing mechanism. Apparently two of those cylinders were fired at the same time,
Yeah.
and they will work perfect when it's cold, but when it's hot, you can crank and crank and crank.
yeah.
And we even put an electric starter on it, which came out of, I think, one of the compact cars. But still, it's unreliable.
Is this it? This is it here?
Yeah, that's
The
the
electric starter?
add-on that
Okay.
we put on.
Yeah.
But
And that didn't really help that much. Did the man that you bought this from, did he have success getting this out? Did he had it out in the water?
You know, we had heard that he did. One story we heard, he was coming home from the river one afternoon and his car ran out of gas or it quit on him. He cranks this up and pushes his car home. Now that's the story I heard.
No, they never really got it on the water, but it works. It works. It'll blow your truck down the road.
I never knew the man, so I don't know.
Well, listen, when you take this out, I want to go with you.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
One way.
One way. Marvin, we saw some of the finished products, the things, and I always ask you, what kind of condition did this boat come to you in? And you said, well, you're very, very humble about it. And you say, well, it wasn't in very good shape. I had to do a little of this and a little of that. But this gives you an idea of when you buy a boat, what it might just normally look like, right? It's nice, but it's a wreck. It needs everything, right?
It does. It does. Yeah, it's just a place to start.
And this is you got this one several years ago, but this is the one you're working on right now, right?
Yeah, I've removed the varnish, most of the varnish, and that's a tough, messy job, but we've got that done. It's a cedar, what we call cedar strip boat, and these strips are actually, they build them upside down on a form, and they nail through each edge of the cedar strips and build the contour of the boat that way with a lot of adhesive and a lot of glue.
That's that's very time consuming. And you say cedar is a better material than some of the plywood that a lot of them are made of.
Cedar's more water resistant as far as being in the lakes and such for marine use. And then we have the ribbing, which is kind of, I think, ornate and relates to the age of the boat. We have a walk-through from the front to the back, which is very, very handy in these kind. And they added, this was kind of a copy of the expensive boats, to have this deck solid coming out over the boat. The dash is oak. Most of your structural parts of a boat are oak. And this is the bracket that the steering wheel fit on. So
well, if you're going to make this spiffy and shiny, you got a lot of work to do, and this is just one sample of the amount of work you're going to have to do.
It takes a lot of buffing.
Wow.
It really does.
It is.
It takes a lot of buffing, but it's amazing how you can bring it back to life.
Now, there's something else interesting about this boat. I'm going to walk over the other side here, and if you come with me. It was the 1950s when fiberglass started to be used in vehicles and boats and that sort of. And this is one of the early ones with a layer of fiberglass, right?
I would call it kind of a conversion. They were still sticking with the original cedar strip construction, but the outer hull, then they were putting a layer of fiberglass on it so that wood boats, when they are stored and they dry out, most of them leak really bad, and you have to put them in the lake for several days, and they
swell up, and then they get waterproof that way.
Get tight, yeah. So this boat, I didn't even realize it till after I bought it and looking over. Here is that fiberglass sheet right here, and of course this is deteriorated in this corner, and I'll have to rebuild this area. The seating of the boat is over there.
Oh, I see. Okay, sitting on your workbench over there, huh? Okay.
Yeah. This is the front seat, and these are the side braces along each side of the seat that will fasten to the side of the hull.
And these are in good enough condition. You can use these. They need to be sanded and
I can
varnished,
totally
but you can use
reuse
them.
those. This is kind of interesting. This is
oh, that's rotten too.
this was the little brace piece that's set under the front seat here in the middle to give it some strength. So that I'm going to have to.
Yeah, the bottom as well.
Yeah, I'll have to rebuild that.
And what did we say? What kind of boat did we say this is?
Chetek, C-H-E-T-E-K. Very popular boat out of Wisconsin.
Okay, let's take a look at that. That's what it's gonna look like, right? That's what it's gonna
Hopefully.
like. Do you know what
Hopefully.
color you want it to be yet? Do you have a dream color on this boat?
We probably will go back with white and blue, just like what this was. Now, we don't know if that's the original color because so many of these boats have been painted and repainted and all, but that would be the color we'll go with. And it had upholstered backs, and they actually are pretty good shape.
They are in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Marvin, some of your collection finds its way to the basement. And it's not all full-size boats. Some of it's just collectibles that you found over the years. A lot of it has the Maritime theme, you know, because you love those boats. But this, I saw this half of a canoe. And I thought, well, why in the world would a person have a half of a canoe? But there's a very good historical reason, isn't there? Because this was a pretty important invention.
Yeah, it was to demonstrate these oars. And a man in Monmouth, Illinois invented this in 1881. F.A. Allen, he was also a well-known duck call carver.
Okay.
And he invented these oars so that you could face the direction that you were oaring and see, especially for duck hunters or something that could want to ease in and shoot the ducks that are down on the water.
And so an oar, can I pick this oar up?
Sure.
It looked like this, and it had this attachment to it, which allowed it to swivel, I guess, and so you could sit and row in the direction you're facing.
Yes.
And this is one of the original from 1880.
From
this
1881,
is one of the originals.
yeah.
Well, I'll be darned. You know, it's kind of funny that it never really caught on. It makes so much sense.
And there were some other people that manufactured these a little later in years. In the early 1900s, there was some patents made, I think, on a similar type of structure.
Yeah, but he was the first. He was the first.
He was the first.
And made news in Monmouth at the time, huh? And you're always looking for collectibles.
Yeah.
This is a pretty cool thing. You don't see many of these. That's a big, well, I would call it a steering wheel, but that's not what a maritime guy calls it.
Navigation wheel.
Navigation wheel.
And we stumbled onto that at a large antique auction in Shipshewana, Indiana. And lo and behold, it had come from Hannibal. The barge was sunk in 1959. The ice destroyed the barge, and so somebody luckily saved the wheel.
It's a 6-foot wheel.
Yes.
Because it doesn't quite touch the ground, but it's a little taller than I am, so it's a 6-foot wheel. And this is not related to that.
No.
You just thought this was neat, huh?
It was something to add to it, yeah. And I had a friend of mine, a blacksmith in Monmouth, made this wall mounting bracket to my specs.
Neat.
Kind of a neat piece.
Does it turn?
Yes,
Okay,
yes it
well,
does.
let's see that.
And the finish was just like this, only I rubbed and oiled it, and it came out.
So you didn't have to do a lot to it.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it was very, very.
The water didn't get to it too bad.
The only thing I did was build this hub. There's of course, a bolt and a shaft in there that showed, and so I made the little cap to put on that. But no, it's.
You got one other collectible down here that I find very fascinating. And I didn't even know that there were show boats that went up and down the rivers, and they would pull into the docks of these river towns, and they would put on a show, like something like a vaudeville show, I assume.
Yeah.
But one of the things they did was they would go out on the dock or the pier, and they would place these seats out there for the audience. So when they were putting on their show on the boat, they also provided the seating.
Yes.
And these fold up, and they can take them from town to town with them.
Easy to transport.
Isn't that something?
And just that was, I guess, something for entertainment back in
Yeah.
the steamboat era.
Yeah, but you can see how they could fold these up. Down here they fold, and they could probably take dozens of these with them.
Yes. The back folds
provide,
down.
The seating for the audience.
Yeah.
Never heard of that before. Cool. Oh, and one other thing, up here, this is, little did you know when you bought this was very valuable.
No, I didn't.
But this was a Carterville, Illinois company
Yeah.
that worked, as you can see, they restored or worked on boats and went out of business, and you got the sign from the...
Yeah, I had done business with them in the early 1880s. I had ordered their instructional tape on restoring boats. And so when they went out of business, Diane and I went down to the auction, and that was one of the things I came home with.
And you later found out that it's very valuable.
Very valuable.
That's always a nice surprise.
Yes, it is. It doesn't always work that way.
That's right. Marvin, this doesn't look upscale right now, but a Chris Craft, that was a pretty upscale product,
Yes,
wasn't it?
it was. Very. The Cadillac of the boat industry. It really was.
This one needs a lot of help, as you can see, but obviously it needs to be, sanded and painted, and the windows have to be put in and everything. But structurally, is it pretty sound?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. When I bought it in Peoria, and another individual had started refinishing it and got very discouraged. Now, I actually turned the boat upside down, and the bottom here is all fiberglass because somebody had used too big a motor on it, and it had some structural cracks in the plywood. So that is all done. I've got this sanded. I just need to paint it. This was a process I'd never tried before. To do this properly, you buy unbleached canvas, and
That's the top here.
yeah, and you paint the deck with good paint, and then you lay the canvas down on that and stretch it, and then you coat the canvas, and that gives you a good waterproof surface and also a good surface to walk on.
Well, it is. You could tell your wet feet would not slip on
Yeah.
there, and it protects the wood forever, doesn't it?
Protects the wood, yes. And where you're sleeping in a compartment, you don't want some leaks and drips
And this is
somewhere.
big enough for that. In fact, look at some of the literature from the 1950s that we're looking at here with this Chris Craft. There's our model, our 1950s female model, and there's her with the stud going up the waterway. But look at her down in the hold.
Yeah.
Down there's enough for two to sleep down there. Yep.
The piece of literature I wrote to the Mariners Museum at Newport, Virginia, they have all the records of the old Chris Craft company, and they're very happy to send you any information that you require. And,
Well, that's the nice thing about obtaining a boat, that many of them were made. There's a lot of information.
A lot of information.
Some of your stuff here is pretty scarce, so there's no information.
there's
on
no
it.
information.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
Well, it's pretty. It's going to be pretty, isn't it?
Oh,
It'll be very pretty.
It will. It'll be, I think, a very, very nice boat.
Marvin, you have some big ones too. This big boat it's different because it's a large cabin cruiser, and it's made of aluminum.
Yeah.
And you don't have many aluminum boats. Maybe this is the only one.
There's,
Less care.
yeah, let's care. And that was the sales pitch back in the 50s and 60s. People were wanting to get away from the wooden boats because they did take a lot of maintenance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
some of the companies were heading towards aluminum constructions. Others were going to fiberglass.
This is a true cabin cruiser. I mean, you could probably sleep 4 people in this thing very comfortably.
Yes. Yes.
And then this would have been an outdoor motor. The motor would have clamped on the back.
On the back.
But you can hear it's metal, it's aluminum.
Very much so.
And then you've got some work to do inside here because that would have been all wood, of course. Right?
I'll need to rebuild the floors. It had a complete kitchenette inside and bunks to sleep people. Very, very upscale for the 1950s.
Yeah. And this was built in Texas.
Yes.
And it was the Lone Star Company.
Lone Star Company. Yeah. And they built boats for several years. They were very, very popular.
Well, Marvin, we needed a ladder to get up in this boat. It's a big boat. It is a big boat. This is the biggest one you got. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I assume this is a 20-some feet, right?
It's a 21-foot electric-powered boat, and it was built in California, and it was in Florida originally, and then it came to Illinois. But it was used in lakes, intercoastal waters. Being all electric, it was easy to start, easy to maneuver, but you only would run maybe 5 miles an hour, so you couldn't run against current.
And a boat this big, I mean, then you're talking about really slowing it down somewhat. How many batteries would it take to power something?
Well,
like
there's about 11. They were all under all of these seats. And you had an automatic charger that when you pulled into dock, you just plugged it in and it would be ready the next time that you went. Very luxury item for people that had cabins or lakefront homes and a party boat. It had we've taken it out now. To date it had an 8-track stereo. It was
Okay, so it's probably from the 60s?
60s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that
Yeah.
era.
It's a little modern for you. You
Too
like
modern.
those 50s. Yeah, it's a little modern for
There's
you.
no fins on
But
it.
this has got everything. It's got a little sink here. It's got a little ice box down here. It's even got a little toilet back there in that little, well, you don't really walk through there, but you could sort of back in there,
Back
I
in.
guess. Yeah. And then if you wanted to, you'd have to lift that hatch if you wanted to stand there and visit while you're doing your business. Huh? But this is really cool because it is a party boat. It's got everything, doesn't it?
Very different for our area in the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's, when my wife and I saw this at the auction, I guess we just had to have it. It was a necessity.
You don't even like the water, do you?
I can't swim.
I have no intention of taking this boat out, but I sure do like them. Marvin, terrific. It's been a great visit. Thank you very much.
Yes,
This is
yes.
terrific. Now this shed or this building here in Roseville may house more boats in the future. As you can see, there is room for a few more, and knowing Marvin, this may be full by this time next year. Aboard the Rice Runner in Roseville, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching Illinois Stories. See you next time.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.